Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. There is an obscene amount of absolutely killer heavy metal tunery coming out within the next few weeks, from the likes of Carcosa, Carnifex, Rivers of Nile, Spirit Box, Employed to Serve, Alien Weaponry, the one and only Iron fucking Maiden, and so many more. But we can't talk about any of this until we talk about all of the albums that I missed in the month of August 2021. So with that in mind, without further ado, let's not waste any goddamn time. Here are all the albums that I feel I missed in the month of August 2021. First up, we have Bombenhagel, a brand new EP from the legendary German extreme thrash metal crew Sodom. It is 18 minutes of blistering, blackened, heavy metal mania with ripping lead guitars and nasty percussive beatdowns and venomous vocals with raw production and an unbridled, unstoppable amount of energy and power. It's everything you know and love about Sodom in a much smaller format. And I honestly don't know what the fuck else to say. Sodom has been around for long enough at this point that if you know who they are, you should probably know what you're getting yourself into by now, listening to anything from them, be it an EP, an album, a compilation, a demo, a fucking single. So, if you liked Sodom's last album and the one before that and the one before that and so on and so forth, you're probably going to like this EP too. Next up, we have The Fire Itself. This is the 5th studio album from American Christian metalcore band Phinehas. I don't really know how their name is pronounced. Here's what I do know. This album's fucking lame as shit. This is some of the most lifeless and soulless and generic cookie-cutter metalcore I've heard all fucking year. Every single trope, every single genre, cliche, and stereotype that pops in your head right fucking now when I say American metalcore is featured prominently throughout this album and dumbed down to a level that is almost offensive. It's just so fucking bland, so fucking boring, so fucking obnoxiously predictable. Like, this album is unsalted crackers, it's mayonnaise on white bread, it's microwaved meatloaf. It's so safe and simplistic and inoffensive, and I just can't fucking stand it. Without question, one of the most boring albums I've heard all year. I couldn't even stomach listening to this a second time for the sake of this video. I very much look forward to forgetting it the moment this video goes online. Let's move the fuck on. Next up, we have Dancing into Oblivion. This is the sophomore studio album from White Stones, a Spanish progressive death metal band featuring Martin Mendez of Opeth fame on lead guitar and bass. And it's pretty solid. It does feel somewhat derivative of Opeth at times, namely like the late 90s, early 2000s Opeth stuff. There are a lot of soft, jazzy prog rock sections, often contrasted with dark, riff-heavy rhythmic sections, a lot of blast beats, a lot of guitar solos, a lot of vocal assaults that definitely bring to mind Michael Ackerfeld in his prime. But, fuck it, because if you're going to borrow, if you're going to steal, if you're going to copy, you may as well do so from Opeth, because, they're fucking Opeth. Like, sure, maybe this album didn't blow my mind or anything, but I was thoroughly entertained by every second of it. There are a lot of great guitar parts, the production's really great. I like how raw and ominous and shadowy this is, without, sounding like a underproduced pile of crap. There's legitimate polish to a lot of this. Frankly, I really appreciate that this album is only 35 minutes long, too. That's the one area where White Stones has a legitimate advantage over Opeth, because, I love Opeth, but sometimes I just don't have an hour to 90 minutes to kill on a record. and Whitestones just comes in, they do their fucking thing, they're able to make a lot of really smart and intelligent and well-crafted music, and they're able to do all of this and leave within a relatively brisk time. I don't know, it ain't perfect, it ain't especially unique, all things considered, but I dug it. If you miss the glory days of Opeth and you've got 35 minutes to kill, you really can't go wrong with this. Next up, we have In Tribute, a brand new covers EP from Outer Heaven, one that dropped pretty much entirely out of the blue, may I add. I was hoping that we'd get a full-blown studio album because it's been a few years now since Realms of Eternal Decay, but I can't really argue with In Tribute because goddamn, it is just filled to the brim with nasty, meaty, evil fucking shit. Uncompromising, gnarly, raw as fuck. This is one of the best sounding death metal releases of the year so far. There's a part of me, a very cynical part of me, that wants to critique this album for not being especially inventive, you know? There's a part of me that wants to sit here and be like, oh, they didn't do much to transform these original songs into new material. But there's another part of me that's just like, dude, shut the fuck up. Just play the fucking songs, have some goddamn fun, drink some fucking beer, shut the fuck up. And thankfully, that is the side that's going to win over today, because yes, while these songs may not be especially inventive, they are fun as holy fucking fuck. These guys are paying tribute to legends of extreme music, to the likes of Repulsion, Morbid Angel, Death, Mortician, and Pig Destroyer, and they're doing so with the utmost sincerity and confidence, and most importantly, brutality, and I'm just having a shitload of fun, so if you want to have a shitload of fun, I would recommend you check out this EP too. Next up, we have Degenerations from Diskord. This is the latest studio album from a long-running underground Norwegian technical death metal band. I was pretty pumped for this record because I heard a lot of good things from Blaine Smith, an angry metal guy, and I don't know, I'm maybe just a little bit underwhelmed. There's definitely a lot to admire about this. There's a lot of sonic and emotional anguish, a lot of weird guitar patterns, a lot of weird rhythmic patterns, a lot of weird vocals, a lot of weird production choices. I'm reminded of the very insane, mind-melting kind of avant-garde death of a band like Artificial Brain, to some extent early Pyron and even Gorguts. But I don't know, it's just not really as fluid, as cohesive, or as potent as anything from any of those bands. It feels weirdly kind of sloppy and underproduced at times, almost like it's unfinished. I will concede that it does get a lot stronger as it continues, but even then, I was never really entirely sold on Diskord's particular brand of avant-garde and technical death metal. I don't know, it might be fun for more casual fans of the genre, for people just looking for a bunch of weird, funky, heavy jams, but I don't know, I've spent enough time with bands of this style that I'm looking for something just a touch more powerful and poignant, and this just ain't it. Next up, we have the Redemptive End from GROZA, and it's okay. I was sold on something perhaps a touch more progressive, but, you know, for what it is, it's pretty strong. Very cold, icy, and direct kind of atmospheric black metal, with additional influences from melodic black metal, from post-black metal. I'm reminded to some extent of Mgwa and Uwada. There are a lot of agonizing, tormented black metal vocals, which I like. This guy sounds like he's in genuine fucking pain, and the production does a really great job at communicating that pain further without ever feeling overwhelming. A lot of the riffs themselves do feel a touch generic, a touch of meat and potatoes, if you will, but it's effective nonetheless. This album probably wouldn't do much to change your mind if you despised black metal, but, you know, if you're down with black metal and you're just looking for another fantastic slice of black metal, no frills, no bells and whistles, just pure agony, then you really can't go wrong with this, I suppose. Next up, we have Wolf Hex. This is the latest studio album from Canadian black metal band Wormwitch. I've been super pumped for this thing. I was a huge fan of their previous studio album, Heaven That Dwells Within. I almost reviewed Wolf Hex, but at the last minute, I decided I would review the new XDO album instead, which in retrospect was a mistake, because nobody fucking watched the XDO video. I mean, maybe it'll have done better by the time this video goes up, but right now, damn, it's clear to me that no one gives a fuck about XDO. which is a shame. But I'm getting off fucking topic, so let's move on. Let's talk about Wormwitch. This album is a little bit more straightforward than Heaven That Dwells Within. It's not quite as grand or mystical, but that's not really a bad thing, you know? There's an emphasis on punky, thrashy riffs, a lot of classic black metal anger. The album is a lot shorter, a lot more trim, and it's so punchy, so spicy, so immediate as a result. I mean, it's kind of hard not to bob your head, not to headbang, not to throw your fist in the air a couple times as Wormwitch rip through some seriously evil tunery. I do think the album ends on kind of a crappy note with a pretty sloppy cover of Hit the Lights, but all things considered, this is a really strong album from start to finish. I would probably pick Heaven That Dwells Within over this, mind you, but, you know, this is still pretty great. You know, if you're looking for something a touch more kick-ass, a touch more hyperactive from black metal, maybe give this a shot. It's got some pretty fun raging tunes on it. Next up, we have Deconsecrate, the latest studio album from Ænigmatum, a band I'm not especially familiar with, but they're signed to 20 Buck Spin, and 20 Buck Spin has yet to let me down. They have consistently offered some seriously wild shit, and Ænigmatum is no exception. Much like a lot of other 20 Buck Spin bands, they play a very chaotic kind of blackened death metal with a lot of proggy twists and turns. Here's what I do know, though. The songwriting, the musicianship, absolutely stellar. The production, fantastic. This record, kind of like that last White Stones record, maybe not a revolutionary record by the standards of progressive death metal, but goddamn, it is so well executed. I'd go as far as to say that this is one of the most entertaining records of this past month, to the point where I genuinely wish I had reviewed this fucking thing. It does get a little bloated right near the end, but it's still a relatively trim record, clocking in at 45 minutes, and the entirety of those 45 minutes is cram-packed with amazing guitar work and great songwriting, and just generally great fucking shit. Definitely check this out if that aforementioned White Stones record did not scratch that progressive death metal itch that you may or may not have. Next up, we have The Consumed Self from Burial in the Sky. Kind of started this record thinking, you know, it's some pretty straightforward technical death metal, not a lot of twists and turns, and, you know, overall I was right. But there was one element that kept me thoroughly invested despite that, and that's the saxophone. I am a sucker for some good old-fashioned fucking saxophone regardless of genre, but there's something about it being applied to a lot of technical and progressive death metal that makes it so goddamn exciting. And unlike so many other bands, this isn't a brief flirtation with the saxophone. It regularly shows up throughout the album, and it provides so much contrast, so much color, so much emotion, and I dig the fuck out of it. Unfortunately, the rest of the music I found to be just generally pretty one-dimensional and formulaic. The album is also pretty long, clocking in at an hour. I feel like you could have trimmed like literally 10 to 15 minutes off of this and lost very little of substance and value. Yeah, I don't know. Check out the saxophone stuff. That's great. The rest of it, meh. It's fine. Whatever. Next up, we have Embers Gathering from Fleshbore, another technical death metal band. My god, this was a busy month for a lot of progressive and technical death metal. And, I don't know, I think I like this a little more than the Burial in the Sky record, but ultimately it does suffer from some of the same problems. It's pretty formulaic, it's pretty one-dimensional, no saxophone, so, you know, automatic step down. The album is admittedly shorter, though, and I do think the music is a little bit more cohesive and tight, but there's also the vocals, which I'm not digging, you know? It's a lot of very phlegmy, low-end gutturals, and it just, I don't know, I'm not really digging them at all. The mix on the percussion is especially irritating and ugly, in my opinion. I'm reminded of some of the trash can snare of, like, Sanguisugabog or some other shit like that. I just don't think that's well done at all. If you dug the Burial in the Sky record, check this out. I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Moving on. Next up, we have Inside the Sun from Comet Control. Not quite metal, but definitely pretty fucking heavy. A lot of like classic psychedelia and old school prog rock and acid rock influences, but brought into the realms of stoner rock with some doomy undertones. It's very lavish, very eclectic, very colorful and trippy and immersive, very simple as well. It's a very accessible record, despite some of its wild, unpredictable soundscapes. It's a very easy record to just kind of zone the fuck out to and relax with. It's a really cool record. I'm reminded of some long-lost fusion of, like, early Caius and some of the more progressive Queens of the Stone Age stuff, but mixed with like Sgt. Pepper's era The Beatles and even some early Pink Floyd. Definitely a nice and much needed palate cleanser from all of the black metal and all of the technical and progressive death metal that we've been talking about in this video. So if you're looking for something a touch more laid back and chillax, I would definitely say to give this a shot. Next up, we have the debut EP from Ov Sulfur, entitled Oblivion. This is the latest project of one Ricky Hoover, previously known for his work with the deathcore crew Suffocate. This band is also being managed by Brad Seed, who has helped deliver perhaps some of the most exciting deathcore of this year so far, and it also features guest appearances from Nick Arthur of Molotov Solution and Tim Lambesis of Austrian Death Machine, and perhaps more famously as A Lay Dying. As a result of all of this, I went into this EP kind of pumped and left it feeling slightly less pumped and maybe a little underwhelmed. Yeah, it's just kind of okay. It's more generic than I was expecting, more formulaic, more predictable. It's very meat and potatoes, modern deathcore. A lot of breakdowns, in-your-face, abrasive vocals, you know, that kind of shit. I was led to believe that there would be more of a blackened kind of death metal presence and influence on some of the material. That's not the case at all. Yeah, I'm a touch disappointed. I don't know. If you're like a total deathcore simp and you're just looking for a bunch of big, dumb, heavy deathcore riffs and grooves, oh yeah, bro, I love deathcore, then go nuts. Honestly, have a blast, dude. I'm happy for you. And finally, this brings us to Anthology from a band called Carcosa. This has been marketed, has been billed and sold as a debut album, but as far as I can tell, it's probably closer to like a compilation. I don't really know, to be honest, and on some level, I also really don't care. Here's what I do know. Kind of a boring album, honestly. I mean, there's definitely skill here, don't get me wrong, but that skill is on a technical level, not a songwriting level. I mean, so much of this is just more really generic, formulaic, predictable, meat and potatoes, modern deathcore, you know? It's just, I feel like I'm listening to the same song over and over. With the second half of this album, there are some guest spots from members of Brand of Sacrifice. Ricky Hoover from the aforementioned Ov Sulfur shows up in here as well, and I think that's kind of where this album really comes to life and finally gets a kick in the ass, but even these tracks aren't really all that special in my opinion. Another case where, just like the Ov Sulfur EP, if you're just a total deathcore bro, you'll probably love this album, but everyone else, I don't know, stay away, unless you're like super desperate, I guess, for like some deathcore. Maybe Lorna Shore and Brand of Sacrifice just didn't fucking do it for you. I don't fucking know. Hey, what up, guys? While I was editing this video, it occurred to me that I totally forgot to mention this badass new album from Oxygen Destroyer. It's 1 in the morning. My girlfriend's asleep, hence why I'm standing outside in my fucking pajamas as opposed to my living room. But that doesn't matter. This Oxygen Destroyer album is so good that we gotta talk about it, at least just a little bit. It's badass black thrash metal about Godzilla and a bunch of other kaiju monsters. It's raw without being primitive and stupid. It's heavy and brutal without being overbearing or overwhelming. It's self-aware, cheeky, but not stupid. The band take themselves very seriously, and most importantly, riffs for fucking days. If you love riffs, you need to check out this goddamn album. That's all. I'm going back inside. Enjoy the actual ending of this video. And that's it! Voila! Those are all the albums that I feel I missed in the month of August 2021. What do you think? Are there any other albums I should have mentioned that I need to be on the lookout for? What are some of your favorite albums from the past month? Your least favorite? What are some of your favorites of the ones we've talked about in this video? Let me know, and let me know soon, because I am moving the fuck on, because guess what? There's a brand new Iron Maiden album, and I cannot fucking wait to talk to you about it. Press this button right here so you can subscribe to the Metal Meltdown and get updates on the channel immediately in case you somehow aren't already. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.